Joining us now is Oji Ope with stories trending around the world. Hello, Oji.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
Hope you had a good weekend.
It's your.
Good morning, Tundu. How are you, darling?
You're wearing
pink.
Yes, I know pink, but that's not what I'm referring to.
All right. Good morning, Rufai. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Oji? Good morning. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. Well, good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe.
In the United States, former President Barack Obama and his family are mourning the death of their dog Boo, who died over the weekend after a battle with cancer. And pregnant Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, makes her first TV appearance since that tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey while taking part in the Vax Life charity concert over the weekend. She spoke about the impact COVID-19 has had on women across the world. In Italy, the country's cultural ministry has discovered fossil remains of 9 Neanderthals in a cave, shedding light on how the Italian peninsula was populated centuries ago. In Russia, in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany, President Vladimir Putin reviewed Russia's traditional World War II victory parade at Red Square in Moscow. In South Africa, a new law that would allow women marry more than one husband, the same way that polygamous men are allowed to marry more than one wife, has made the rounds. And a video of the country's former president, Jacob Zuma, taking part in a dance challenge with his family tops the trend. In Nigeria, as Muslims join others globally in preparations towards Eid al-Fitr, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed all celebrations to be limited due to COVID-19. As a result, he will not be receiving any visitors. Under sports, Lewis Hamilton beat Max Verstappen to victory at the Spanish Grand Prix on Sunday. It is his third win in 4 races this season and the 98th of his career.
Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk.
Finally, under entertainment, billionaire Elon Musk appeared on Saturday Night Live and made history as the first person with Asperger's syndrome to host the show.
I'm actually making history tonight as the first person with Asperger's to host SNL.
Let's begin what's trending with this special report. The death of Peju Ubunna, an award-winning pastry chef based in Lagos, has sent shockwaves through social circles in the city. Accusations of gross negligence on the part of Premier Specialist Hospital have trailed the story. Arise News correspondent Adefemi Akinsoya reports.
Peju Ubunna had every intention of living. Her elective fibroid surgery was supposed to improve her life. Instead, it led to her death, and her family wants to know why. Here's what we know. On Thursday, April 22nd, Peju entered this hospital, Premier Specialist Medical Center in the Victoria Island area of Lagos. The cost was 1.5 million naira, approximately $4,000. The surgery was carried out the following morning. Some 48 hours later, she was pronounced dead. Left behind are Peju's heartbroken family, which include 2 young daughters and a husband. He's distraught and unable to talk to us on camera, but has allowed us to speak to a family representative who was elected not to be identified. Amid the loss and confusion, we begin our conversation with his fondest memory of Peju.
I can't really even tell you just one fond memory, because even the day before the surgery, she was Peju. She made jokes. She was very optimistic. She had this very positive outlook. She made plans for a few days after the surgery. This was someone who was filled with so much love and always expressed it. So, yes, that's who Peju was.
Tell us, when first did you realize something was wrong?
After surgery, she complained of very acute stomach problems. But I mean, we assumed that would be a normal reaction to surgery, especially in the abdomen area, and the loss of blood pressure. So at that point, we're a bit worried. The doctors seemed to know what they were doing at the time, and we thought she would come around. Unfortunately, she didn't.
The day after the operation, Peju was losing blood. Her family say doctors at Premier told them she needed a transfusion, but they did not have her B+ blood type in their blood bank. The family was able to organise 9 pints through a crowdsourcing campaign on WhatsApp. But Peju's blood pressure had dropped as low as 50/30. Hours later, she was transferred to the intensive care unit. Thereafter, the family were asked to make another payment before she was put on a respirator.
We were in touch with a family friend who is also a consultant gynecologist abroad, and he had actually clearly stated that she must be bleeding internally, and he also insisted on speaking with the doctors, and we made sure that happened. We gave them the phone, it was on speaker. He told them in very clear terms that he's quite sure that she's bleeding internally with the information he has, and they should go back in and just stop the bleeding.
What was their response?
I mean, they said they'd heard him, but it didn't seem like they acted on it.
The family say the hospital insisted a CT scan be performed before any further action was taken. Premier does not have a CT scan machine, and so the decision was made to transfer Peju to Evercare Hospital in Lekki, some 7 kilometers away.
It took 3 hours before she was moved from Premier to where the CT scan was to take place, and if there was that didn't show any urgency.
Another payment of 1 million naira was made upon arrival, and according to the family, work began to resuscitate Peju. Those efforts were in vain, and she was pronounced dead. Soon after, the family say Evercare returned around 750,000 naira to the family.
The guys at Premier left and promised to return with the death certificate. They did after about an hour and a half or so. And one of them had actually mentioned that Premier would like to carry out an autopsy. We later decided that an independent autopsy should be done. We put the independent pathologist in touch with a doctor at Premier, and he had demanded for the case note, photocopies of the case note, and the autopsy had been fixed for a particular day. Unfortunately, he called again and said Premier is yet to send him, the case note. I called the doctor at Premier and asked why, and he promised that it would be sent at a certain time. I waited and I called at that time he promised, and he said that they were still working on it. And I think he said something about having to make photocopies, and I was wondering, how long will it take? This has been almost a day to make photocopies. I'm confused. And I said, if photocopies are the problem, I can assist. When I called again, he still said the same thing. So at that point, we decided to drive to the hospital to find out what the problem was. The doctor at that point, now seeing us, said it wasn't really his own responsibility, but this was the same doctor who had promised the day before. It wasn't something we were trying to collect. We wanted them to send it to the pathologist.
It's important to note, at the time of this report, Premier Hospital has not made any public statement and insists it does not comment on individual cases. However, I spoke to staff involved in the matter, off the record, with the understanding their identity will remain confidential. Their account of events are somewhat different from that of the Ogboma family. According to this source, the delay in handing over Peju's medical records and case file was due to them seeking legal advice. Protocol dictates the request for the files from the independent pathologist must be made in writing. The hospital source says that a formal request was never made, and goes on to say another delay was due to the time it took for photocopies of each document to be made. Further, I was told the drainage system for Peju had failed, and doctors were initially unaware of the internal bleed, and when they were aware, the decision not to return Peju to the operating theatre was made due to concerns about her pre-existing health conditions.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I wasn't told about any, or I'm not aware of any high blood pressure being the reason why they couldn't, go back in her to stop the bleeding.
The independent autopsy was not ready at the time of this report, but the cause of death listed on Peju's death certificate issued by Premier was acute renal injury.
There are a lot of people who have lost loved ones to needless situations, situations such as this, and we just hope that it will stop, that finally people will be more responsible in carrying out their duties, especially when it has to do with people's lives.
Make no mistake, this death, much like any other in similar circumstances, is tragic and may be a byproduct of wider issues such as fake and faulty medical equipment, brain drain, and the reason why many in Nigeria still prefer to travel abroad for medical treatment. The Ogwama family say they are in touch with lawyers who are assisting them in determining whether Peju's death was as a result of negligence. Premier Specialist Medical Centre has received stellar reviews across the 30 years it's been in operation. In that time, though, mortality is inevitable. But the question is, was this death preventable? Many await the answer. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Lagos.
This was a horrible, horrible story that was trending all weekend. She was also trending alongside another hashtag, Justice for Omolara. But Adefemi asked the right question. Could this death be preventable? Apparently, the autopsy from the Lagos State Teaching Hospital revealed that they found 2 liters of blood in her stomach and pelvic, meaning that she had died from internal bleeding. And it is so appalling that, we talked about this on Friday, about the negligence of the hospital system. Now, the trending hashtag Omolara, Justice for Omolara, was another woman in Ogun State. She had been treated for malaria. They had diagnosed her for malaria, but she had gone in complaining of stomach pain, of ulcer, but they told her she tested positive for malaria, and they injected her. And the sad part of her story was the fact that when she got to the hospital, the doctors found that her state was critical and they had to put her on oxygen, and then transferred her to another hospital in a private car without an oxygen tank that could have saved her life. This is horrible, 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 Tundu.
Unspeakably tragic. And, like you've said, the story has been everywhere all weekend. I've read it several times, but listening to Adefemi's report, it's like I'm just hearing it for the first time.
Yes.
It's devastating that this should happen to either of these 2 promising young ladies. But I have to say, let me start with the reference you made to your story last week. For me, I see no similarity here. Let me tell you my issue. I will never join a chorus of castigation against our beleaguered medical officials, against our soldiers, because the silent but unmistakable subtext is often, oh, Nigeria sucks. I will never, ever join that chorus, ever, in a million years. In a million years. But for me, I draw the line at bad governance. The gloves come off for that, because when you're a patriot, you defend your country, not necessarily its government, if your government is not defending your country. But for me, that's a separate issue. Those are public hospitals, and the fact that they're underfunded, understaffed, those issues exist. Now, this Premier Hospital, and thanks to Adefemi for that very balanced report that she gave. It's a private hospital. One is not necessarily going to extend that same level of benefit of the doubt. This patient paid. And frankly, if I had $1 for everybody that I know, every woman I know who had had fibroids removed, I would have almost the money that Peju paid for this surgery. It is a common procedure. It should never have resulted in her death. Now, what does the law say about medical negligence in Nigeria? It's quite a difficult standard because, you know, we follow common law, and obviously Lord Denning is just like the gold standard. He has a very high standard of medical negligence because he does not want a case where doctors are constantly worried and cannot discharge their duties. He does not apply the standard of lay persons like us. He applies the standard of a doctor like them, censuring that person, saying that person should not have done that. So the standard is, what would a doctor say? So it's a professional on that level that will look at this case and say whether there was negligence or not. It's not me that's going to sit here and say that. So I have to make that point. But in Nigerian law, it's actually been decided that there are 3 factors. That the defendant owed a duty of care to the plaintiff. They haven't gone to court, but just in case they do, they have 3 years in which to file an action. That they owed a duty of care to them, that duty of care was not exercised, and that an injury was caused as a result of failing to exercise that duty of care. Now, there's a Nigerian case quite recent in 2006, Ojo versus Gororo. A lady had a blockage in her fallopian tubes, had surgery, they left a broken needle in her abdomen, it caused her pain, they found it. And they were still not guilty, they were not liable. They were not guilty of medical negligence. So it's quite a high standard. However, those are cases where there was an injury. This case is death. So what we're looking at now is extremely serious. According to the criminal code, we have section 317, manslaughter. Right. Because if somebody dies, it's murder. If there's a mental aspect, if you intended to kill. If you did not intend to kill and the person dies, it's neither here nor there. It's manslaughter. That is life imprisonment. Right. This is extremely serious. And the point of this is just to show that every single care must be taken. Right. People cannot show up to do every surgery is serious, obviously, but it's quite a common surgery for black women. I'm sure you know so many women who've had it. She cannot present herself for such a surgery that's quite routine and lose her life. She cannot. And a peptic ulcer be misdiagnosed. So the failings are from diagnosis in both these cases. We discussed all the way from diagnosis to even the aftercare, to even the way the family feel aggrieved, the way they were treated after their loved one had passed on, that they're still having to have these wrangles. Something has to change. This is completely devastating. It's heartbreaking.
Unacceptable. Dr. Abati, your analysis on the story.
Okay, yes. I think it was heartbreaking that over the weekend we had 2 cases of 2 ladies in their prime losing their lives on account of medical negligence, as has been reported. In Arepo, Ogun State, at Beachland Hospital, we had a case of Omolara Omoya Jowolo, which you refer to as hashtag Justice for Omolara, which was reported by a friend, Chantal_XX. Now, she went to the hospital with a case of peptic ulcer. Then she was diagnosed as having malaria. And we were told by a friend that, she was over-injected. And then she needed oxygen. The situation became critical. And then the hospital, from the report, tried to do some abracadabra. Having seen that the situation was critical, they wrote a letter and asked her to be taken to another hospital. And at that hospital, she was brought in dead. So our friend is now alleging, negligence. And she's asking for a reform of the medical sector in Nigeria. And then you also have this case of, the pastry chef, I Love Desserts, CEO, Peju Ugboma, who had fibroid, went to the hospital. She was supposed to go through a simple surgery. And then, of course, according to our family, they issued a formal statement. The situation was mismanaged, and the surgery was done on Thursday. By Saturday, complications had set in. The husband had paid so much money. And during the process, the husband was also seeking medical advice from an independent doctor in London, who advised at a point that given the symptoms that have been demonstrated, there must be excess blood, within our body, and they needed to do an immediate surgery, another surgery. Now, that advice was not acceded to by premier hospital experts. And I guess that's why the husband is very angry, because he sought a second opinion. But you know how it is in Nigeria. An average doctor, if you tell them I have this independent opinion, they will say, oh, you are trying to teach me how to do my work. Even journalists, if you tell me how to write a paragraph, I'm likely to ask you, have you done this job before? Correct. I've been writing paragraphs for more than 35 years. So it's a Nigerian, it's a Nigerian attitude. And I think that there's something in there. Mr. Ugboma, whom we saw in that interview with Adefemi Akinson, has said he will go to court. Okay, yes, he should go to court, because this is a legal issue. There's something called medical negligence under what we were taught medical ethics. And the standard taught is negligence, as Mama Susu taught us in those days in the Faculty of Law. So you have the right to go to court because there are principles. And the basic principle, as stated in Section 2B of the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act of Nigeria, is that it's about the physician's oath.
Right.
And that Hippocratic Oath says a medical doctor shall do no harm. So in these two cases, the affected persons are saying that the doctors involved have done harm. So they can go to court, but the other alternative that I will also recommend to, the additional alternative that I will recommend to Mr. Ugboma and Omolara Omoya Juluwolo's family, is that they should also approach the Medical and Dental Practitioners Council of Nigeria. Because Part C of their code talks about negligence and incompetence. And if a doctor has been found not to exercise the necessary duty of care, which is the big principle under the law of torts. If you fail under the law of torts to exercise your duty of care, then you are negligent. Well said. If they go to the Medical and Dental Practitioners Council, if the doctors are found guilty, there are appropriate disciplinary actions that can even be taken by that council, even outside of the law. Yes, so these are the issues in this regard. But the truth, of course, is that this represents the situation in Nigeria. Many people go through this.
This is it.
The late Gani Fawehinmi, SAN, conscience of the society. For many years, he was misdiagnosed in Nigeria. He wrote about it, he spoke about it publicly. And there are many people who can tell you, what he went through, from misdiagnosis, from negligence. But this, of course, does not take away from the fact that Nigerian doctors, there are many of them that are good, but where negligence can be established under the laws of medical ethics, I think individuals should seek redress. We commiserate with the affected families.
Rufai, your analysis on the story.
Thank you so much. Commiserations, because no matter what we say, the person that has died has died. No miracle will break their back. So commiserations to the family and to the husband. It must be a tough time now. Secondly, I'll say it. Let's not deceive ourselves. The healthcare system in Nigeria is shambolic. Let's not deceive ourselves. If it was working, we'll say it was working. It is this same Nigeria in the 60s that the Saudi royal family used to come and get healthcare from University Teaching Hospital Ibadan. The Saudi royal family used to come to this country for healthcare. Then it was a center of excellence. Now it is shambolic. Let's not deceive ourselves. Even when you look at the episode, you'll be shocked. So a private hospital can't have a CT scan in this country. That's what it means. That shows you no adequate investment. The question you want to ask is, where's the peer review? If you have a surgery like that, you should have a team of doctors to do a surgery like that.
Right.
So if there was a say-so of one person, and all of them agreed nothing was wrong, so you see, it leaves no peer review.
Rufai, I'm sorry to have to interrupt you, but we'll have to go on a short break. And when we come back, you'll continue your analysis. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the Morning Show. We're still on What's Trending. Rufai, before we went on a break, you were making a comment on those two women that tragically died over the weekend.
Very sad. So thirdly, like I said, no peer review. And we can't deceive ourselves. I mean, it shouldn't be a big deal if you're a medical doctor, you're operating on somebody else is saying, oh, let me double check what you're doing. It shouldn't be a big deal. It's medicine. Nobody knows it all. Even if you make all the best doctors in the world, the likes of Michael DeBanke, that pioneered open heart surgery and the likes, they'll still tell you, I need peer review because we don't know it all. Fourthly, logistics. It took 3 hours to be able to get to a CT scanner. I understand the hospital is in VI, correct me if I'm wrong, and just to go to Lekki here to get these guys 3 hours. You can see the timeline. So a lot of things are wrong with the healthcare sector in this country. Also, the lady that had everything is malaria in this country. I'm sick and tired of that. Everything is malaria. So it's so easy to treat. People are dying, they've got cancer, it's malaria. There is nobody that's, I have stories to tell about many times that people say it's malaria. You just know the doctor is not doing anything right as regards that. So what are the solutions? We need to look back at our healthcare system. We need to put money. Rotus brought a story of how a Moroccan hospital was seeking to raise, I think, $100 million. We need to put money because it is money that can turn around the healthcare system. Two, the regulators need to come in strongly. I have not seen any message by the Nigerian Medical Association. They must come in and comment about this. They must put higher regulations in place. Thirdly, the question is, will this change anything? I doubt it.
Right.
You see, what will happen is, this will make the media rounds. We'll talk about it for about a week or two. Then nobody covers it again. Then we move on. Then we go back to square one. And that's the problem. That's what kills me every time about this country. You know why, Oji? Because as of 2018, the United, I think it was World Health Organization or something, did a ranking, and they ranked Nigeria's healthcare sector, the third worst healthcare sector in the world. And nobody said anything about it. We've just forgotten. So this will not create any change. I pray for the repose of the souls. But can something be done about the healthcare sector? Yes. But will this create the change? Nothing, except we all stand up and make it a matter of national urgency. Well, let's not forget, this was the same country that Saudi royal family used to come and get healthcare in the 60s.
Yeah, you said that already.
Can they come there? Can they come to Nigeria to get healthcare again?
Correct. Well, may their souls rest in peace.
Amen.
Let's take another story. A report by the Daily Trust revealed how some governors squander billions of naira on private jets, while their states are in dire financial situations and can hardly pay salaries, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The report also revealed that only 2 governors use commercial flights, while majority of the governors pay for chartered aircraft. The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, in an interview with the Daily Trust, berated the governors for continuing to charter private jets despite their claims that the economy is dwindling. He said there are states that budget up to 10 billion naira for hiring private jets, and in most cases, they add it to their personnel costs, which is what is adding to the high cost of governance. The Labour Congress president called on Nigerians to rise up and fight against such impunity by demanding accountability and transparency, adding that the cost of governance should be drastically reduced and not cutting workers' salary. I think he hit the nail on the head, Tundu. This is the right rhetoric that we need to hear from these leaders. We need to berate these people. It is horrible.
100%,
Yes.
OG. This kind of profligacy has a pathological dimension to it. You wonder about a person's sanity when you can be so wasteful in the midst of lack, in the midst of desperation. It's unconscionable.
Dr. Abati,
Well, very quickly, this has to do with the size of government and the cost of governance. You recall that at a point, the Buhari government said it was even going to address the problem by implementing the Oronsaye report.
Right.
Now, the Oronsaye report tried to come up with the idea of slim, small, lean government. The technical word is lean government, whereby you cut off all the leaky buckets that make government so costly and unprogressive. But up to this moment, the government has not been able to even implement that in terms of reducing cost. So it's not just about governors buying private jets. It's about the size of government. It's about the ideology of governance. It's about this thinking that, look, when you're in charge of government, at either the presidential level or the subnational level, you can just, amass costs just because you are the emperor, just because you are the monarch, you are the Kabiyesi in charge. At the national level, you recall that President Buhari's All Progressives Congress, they promised that one of the things they will do when they get there will be to reduce the size of the presidential fleet because of the cost. Has that happened? One of the things they promised was a review of the Oronsaye report that got everybody excited. Now, has that happened? It has not happened because there is territoriality in governance. You know, once you are in government and you have perks and you have all kinds of appurtenances around you, you don't want to lose one item of it. The second leg of it is what Tundun referred to, the profligacy, which is responsible for the cost of governance. You have one governor, in an attempt to please those who voted for him, he will appoint like 100 special assistants or special advisors. All of them will have offices. All of them will have official cars. All of them will collect salaries. Okay, when you do that, you expand the size of government. You expand the scope for corruption. You add more leaky buckets into the process. I think that what we need to do is to get to a point whereby there is an elite consensus about how we address the challenge of the cost of governance. Look at the National Assembly. Nkiru Onyejocha, Honorable, was proposing that, okay, there should be affirmative action for women and all of that. But one of the major criticisms of that noble idea, noble intervention, is that, okay, if you are going to appoint additional persons who will be female, you will expand the size of the National Assembly by maybe another 111 seats.
That's my issue.
Who is going to pay for that?
That's my issue.
So that's like expanding the cost of governance again. The governors who own private jets, who fly up and down, either they buy one or they use state resources to go and attend their meetings. Now, the place they are always going is Abuja. Many of them don't sit in their states. So because there is this focus on Abuja, everybody is trying to get one small private jet so that they can go to Abuja in the morning and come to their state in the evening, and they will not focus on the assignment that the people of their states have given them. So you have this huge cost of governance, and I think that the only solution to it is for the National Assembly, or don't let's talk about National Assembly. Those ones are even more profligate than any other institution of government. Okay, House of Assembly. Well, those honorables at the state houses, they are boys to the governors anyway. So I think that what is important is for civil society to speak up.
Correct. We have to continue to speak up.
For civil society to ask the relevant questions and to say that the kind of profligacy that we see at all levels is unsustainable at a time when we have issues with exchange rate, we have a revenue problem, and then you have the wife of a governor being taken to the market by a lorry load of policemen.
Rufai, we
and you
have a few minutes left. I would love Rufai's comment on the story, please.
For me, I'm not surprised they are flying private jets. That's who they are. A lot of them are flying private jets when the economic jet of their state have crash landed. Look at them, the seats. They can't pay for resources in their states. They can't make money, fleecing off federal funds. They can't pay teachers. They can't pay workers. They are flying private jets here and there. That's to show you who they are. So I'm not surprised. This is who they are. Do we not know them before? A lot of them, their states, the economy of their state is in tatters. The state can't produce. The state is dead economically, but they fly private jets. Anyway, former president of America always says this, and I quote him a lot, Eisenhower. He said, people that value privilege over purpose will soon lose the privilege and the purpose. So it's obvious
we've got to go
that
now.
they value privilege over purpose.
Thank you, Rufai. Thank you, Dr. Abati. Thank you, Tundu. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Reducing the cost of governance. Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance, was saying government will cut salaries. I hope that's not what they will do. They should sell off the private jets.
Good point.
That would be a better way, a better starting point.